Okay, welcome. Let's get right into this. This is going to be a seven-part tutorial into React. React is one of the most popular new frameworks to build front-end resources for the web. This is the React homepage. Has a lot of documentation, a lot of examples. If you're new to programming or if you've never programmed with React before, this video series may be able to show you the ins and outs of some of this without making it too complicated. The first video that we'll do today is just going to focus on setup and background. The next video we're going to start to dig into a React application, and by the end we'll have hopefully built an application that actually does something a little bit kind of interesting, and we'll take you through a process that shows you how to think in React. And as background, who I am, I have a small startup called Payola, and initially this video is targeted toward sort of someone at the intern level at this company. But this is me here. I'm the founder of this company, and it would help to, before going to a small company like this, to know what kind of stack they're using. And so that's one of the reasons I'm making this video, just to show you what kind of development I might be doing here, and what other startups are doing, and just to show you the kind of culture that I want to build at this company, where we're going to be sort of learning things and teaching each other things. So to start off, the most important decision that you're going to make to get started is what kind of computer to use. I'm using a Ubuntu Linux system, but it shouldn't be very difficult for you to get these things running on OS X on a Mac or on Windows. And it also doesn't necessarily need to be a super powerful computer. This is a really simple development machine that I'm using. It's not very new. It's very cheap. You could probably spec out a computer like this with a solid state disk for under $300 going forward. In a couple of years this will be really obsolete, but you should be able to run all of this with as long as you have something like an 8 gigabyte memory machine. If you're using less than 8 gigabytes, you're really going to struggle probably. Some of these things take up a lot of memory, and if you're using a CPU that's any older than this, you're going to find it's not going to work very well. This is one of the newer, if not the newest version of Ubuntu, and you can tell because they do like a year-based, month-based release system. So this is from October of 2019. Okay, so let's start talking a little bit about what we're going to need. What you're going to want to do is make sure you've got Node.js installed. I'm going to put that in the description, but that's sort of the starting point for all of this. Once you have Node installed, which is not going to be the subject of this video, you can experiment with it a little bit and just see that it's working by typing the node command in a terminal. And this is important to be able to test things out, run little snippets of code, and do little bits of testing so that you can see what you're up to. So now we've got Node installed. That usually comes with something called Npm as well. And Npm is a Node package manager. Before we get too deep into that, let's talk about how JavaScript works, because really what we're talking about with React is a browser-based JavaScript program. Okay, so instead of having a server in the background that can react and store, can change state and save things to a database, or connect us to other users, a browser application is just in charge of displaying things. So our little program is going to be limited to the fact that it doesn't have a database, a backend, or any other way to connect anything just yet. But you need something like this if you're going to build a display for a web page. And JavaScript was built specifically to allow you to interact with a program on a web page. The basis of this is just loading up JavaScript in a simple HTML file. And let me show you real quick how we can do that. I'm going to make a little directory called test here right on the command line. Now I can edit a file by using a type of editor. There's a couple I can choose from, one of them being gedit. And we can edit an HTML file. And we don't have to have a lot in it. We can just say HTML. This is just a document format. Body. And we'll put in it works. This is the classic Apache thing. We'll save that. And then what we can do is we can actually navigate to it by typing in the file path into a browser. Now I've got a browser open in another window here. Let's see. Code index.html. There we go. Let me bring that over so you can see it. Here is our little browser window. So if we want to have a little bit of JavaScript in here, it's pretty easy. We can just have a little bit of JavaScript with a script tag. See if this works. Script/script. We can just pop some JavaScript right in there. Alert. Hello. Okay. And we'll make it the hello world. That's what everybody does to get their feet wet with programming. So all we have to do is save this. Refresh over here with an F5. And there we go. Our JavaScript is running. So we can make a really complicated front-end program to display our web page. Make it so that menus are interactive, you can move things around, things like that. Usually what people do with this kind of JavaScript is display things in interesting ways, or make it so that the information that a user enters is correct and can be sent back correctly. Because you need to use this type of JavaScript to actually send information back to a server or database system. So, this kind of brings us to what React is. React is just a compiler that takes React type code that we'll work with, and we can stop worrying too much about this, because we're going to write in React, and then React is going to spit out this for us, and our browser is not really going to know the difference. React is going to do what's called a compile step in between what we type and then what ends up running in the browser. So the browser is going to see something a little bit like this, but much more complicated, and we're going to see React. And the nice thing is React is done well enough that we never really have to worry about what is going on here, or rarely have to worry about it. Rare enough that if you do, you probably can call up the people who wrote React and they'll fix it for you. So what we're going to do is we need to start by creating a new React application. Let's close this for now, and we will go ahead and delete our little test file. And let's make a new directory, and we'll call it chess test. And we'll cd to it. So now we're in the chess test directory under code. And what we'll do is we're going to need a package to install React. And the package that we want to get from npm is the create React app package. And by running this command, what we've said to npm is to go ahead and go out and find this package. And npm is the management system that understands there are 91 dependencies that it needs in order to run this code. So somebody wrote this code, but they depended on 91 other libraries. And we don't even need to know anything about them. But it pulled all of that code down for us and stuck it into this directory called node modules. And one of the things that node modules has in it is a special directory for anything that you can execute directly. And create React app is one of those. So what we want to do is we want to specify that we're going to run node modules bin, and this dot makes it a hidden directory. This dot says to use the current directory. This dot says that this is a hidden directory, and you actually need to type the path in. And then here we are to create React app. When we run this, we need to tell it the name of our app as the next argument by having a space. So what we could do is we could call it test app and hit enter. Now this, what it is doing is it's creating everything that we need in order to make a React application. And the nice thing is that includes everything to compile and run it and deploy it. So we'll show you that once it's done pulling it all down. One of the things that you'll notice is that it's having to go and get a lot of stuff. And you'll notice it even says that. This might take a couple of minutes. That's because this is a really big program. I can see my CPU is actually heating up because I have a system monitor and we're up to over 100 degrees Celsius. So what React is going to do here is it's going to set up our entire environment and make it so we can run it straight out of the box. There's actually a little bit of a joke about this. Let's see if I can find it real quick while it's still installing. Here we go. This is one of my favorite Twitter users. Me after running create React app. Steve Jobs giving his famous Macintosh demo. There we go. And you can see it gives us a lot of useful instructions here. All we have to do to run this is type cd test app, and you can see it actually says we suggest you do this, right? Cd test app, right? And then npm start. So this is actually going to fire up typically a whole browser for you. Oh, and it's using Firefox for some godforsaken reason. But there you go. We have our React app is up and running. It even tells us which file to edit. Now, a couple of things to note about this. One of them is this is running a server here, and you'll notice we're actually connecting to localhost, and this colon tells it to go to a specific port. Normally, the default is port 80 or 443. Those are the ports that you would connect to automatically. And you don't have to type them, they end up being hidden. But if you have a colon, then that tells the browser not to go to one of those, but to go to a specific TCP port. That's not really that important right now, but what's important is to understand that right now you're connecting to this server that's running on your local computer. Now, if you Control C to stop running it, then you're not going to be able to refresh this page. It's going to say unable to connect. But as soon as you bring it back up, you're back in business. Now, earlier we pointed directly at a file, and React works the exact same way. We can actually run a static React with no server, pointed at an index.html file, and it will run. But you're going to look at this directory and think that I'm crazy, because there's no index.html in here. There's a public directory. Let's look in there. ls public. There's an index.html. But sure enough, if you try and navigate to that, let's type in Firefox public index.html. You'll see there's nothing loaded here. The reason is, what we have to do is npm run build. Okay. What that's going to do is that's going to compile our whole application down into that one little web page, just like we started. And sure enough, here we are. And it tells us, oh, you can serve it here, and that's really helpful, actually. You can, all you have to do is run this little program, and you have your own web server again. But all of this stuff got built, and this is all we need to run our React application. So you'll notice we have a new directory now. So if we go into build and we type Firefox index.html, sure enough, it still fails, right? Well, that makes sense. Let's look at the developer console. Web developer, web console. Okay. And you can see here that it failed to load the script with source /static JS to blah, 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 blah. So this is one of the files that it was trying to load. So it loaded the index.html correctly, but it couldn't find any of the JavaScript that React created for us. The reason is just because it was meant to be run with a special root path. And all we really have to do is we can just edit this file directly, and you'll see what I mean. This looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, as so it should. It was generated by a computer. But you'll see, peppered throughout this file, there are references to other files like PNGs with the logo, or static CSS main db d1b 0 whatever. You can see these all start with a slash. And the reason is it wants you to have an absolute path to tell it where it is on a website. But that doesn't work with a file system. So if you change these all to what's called a relative path instead of an absolute path, well, let's see, there's one over here. There's manifest JSON. There's, let's see what else we got. There's one. Okay, we can probably save that. Oh, there's another one. And fave icon, there's one. And that'll probably do it. Let's try it out. We save it and we refresh. Oh, and look at that. Okay, we're missing something somewhere here. Let's see. Probably logo. PNG. Logo. It's kind of interesting. Well, at any rate, you can see that it's working. It loaded up our React application. This is some fancy CSS they stick in there so it looks fun. Where's the word logo coming from? Anyway, doesn't matter. Point is, we don't have to worry about this. We can close this. And we can just run. We can rmrf that build that got created. We don't need that. If we npm start, then we're running our server and it opens a new window. Now sometimes it can be annoying. You got to go back and close these windows. Okay. Now that we're this far, the next piece of this puzzle is we've got to have Visual Studio Code or some other editor to work with our React program. I prefer to use Vim, but this video is not about an editor in particular, and this is the most popular editor that new programmers would use. So we're going to stick with this for this video series. What we want to do is open a folder, and we've got our chest test here, and we don't want to go into chest test because this is where we installed create React app. What we want to do is go into test app because this is the application that got created for us. So we'll click OK here, and it's going to open this whole folder for us. And this is actually the source code that we're told to edit source app.js. So we click into this folder, and when we select app.js, sure enough, it opens a little app.js. Now what we can do is we can just make a simple change, save this, and you'll notice it detected that we made a change over here, and it loaded it over here. We didn't have to do anything other than save the file. So once we're ready, we can do something like build this React app and deploy it to whomever is in charge of running our stack in production. But in order just to test things out, these are the pieces you need. You need npm, you need to be able to run a create React app, you need to be able to npm start your server, have a browser that you can run this in, and have an editor that you can edit it in. Now in the next video, we're going to start getting into the actual mechanics of how to work on our React app, and we're going to develop the next step, so to speak, in creating a chess project. So thanks for coming along, and if you're ready, proceed to the next video.